the website is the front porch of your district and, how people will judge it from afar.
We are surrounded by content. Content shapes who we follow, how we lead, what we buy, and even what we believe. Welcome to the Content Generation Podcast, a class intercom production where we focus on the stories that come to life in schools all over the world. We highlight the students, educators, and communities who share the content that shapes our future. Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I'm Ben, and I am joined with Dr. Jill. Dr. Jill, you have been traveling a lot of places.
I have. I feel like I've been all over and back again.
Well, welcome back to the office. It's good to be in the same place. We're literally in the same room here today. But we're covering a lot of ground with a lot of partners in the industry who are covering the needs that school PR professionals have, and in particular, parents and faculty. So that's a really fun place to be.
Yeah, for sure. It's been really fun for me to be out on the road and visiting with a lot of people. And one of those partners is ParentSquare. And so I was able this year to attend their 3 summits. They had one in Oklahoma, that was their central summit, and then one in Connecticut for their Eastern clients, and then most recently in San Jose for ParentSquare Summit West. So it was really great to be able to go to those conferences, present, interact with their clients, their employees. It's really a great group of people to interact with.
Well, one of the people that is behind a lot of that engagement and really helps design as a product manager, for those of you who don't work with product managers, this is a really fun role because in ed techs, you have that person who's really designing the solution to fit the needs of those types of customers. And Melissa is one of those product managers for ParentSquare, managing their smart sites. And Jill, I think you're going to really enjoy this podcast. And one of the reasons that it was really interesting engaging with her is that has a background as a teacher in a classroom.
Yeah, from the first time I met Melissa, I was really struck by her. She has a very engaging personality. Listening to her just interact with their clients, answer questions on stage in front of a larger group. Just a really dynamic personality and very knowledgeable and driven to be innovative and serve their clients the best they can.
For sure. She has a background in middle school civics, which is fantastic. We had some great chats, both online and offline, about some of that background and some of the things she even, you could tell, missed being able to engage in those election time periods around her students and really have those important dialogues. But we're having so many of those dialogues now, and I think it's really fun to hear the way she's really trying to serve students, serve the kids, right? But from a little bit of a distance now.
Yeah, can't wait to listen.
Well, thank you. And with that, let's jump into the podcast. Well, welcome back to the Content Generation Podcast. I have a special guest today, Melissa Mertz, coming to us from ParentSquare. And Melissa, it's been great to get to know you a little bit, but I'd love to welcome you to the podcast. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, as we get started helping people get to know you a little bit and your story, you've covered coast to coast a bunch of things for education, career, and your personal journey. Tell us a little bit about where you're from originally.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Southern California, born and raised in a suburb of LA. And when I was little, wanted to be a teacher. And so that's what I ended up doing. I majored in history, got my teaching credential, taught middle school for 5 years, social studies. And at the end of that 5-year time, I thought to myself, I wonder if there's anything else out there, And so I looked around and thought maybe I could do something behind the scenes. It's still in education because I still believe in the purpose of public schools and education being so critical to our culture. And so I got a job as a curriculum specialist for a nonprofit, developing character education curriculum, which I thought was my dream job, because part of why I had to bow out of being a teacher was just the struggles of classroom management and character in students. I mean, 95% of them were amazing, but it was the 5% that I just struggled with. And so developing that curriculum was a way for me to kind of tackle that. But that ended up not being, the path for me. And so when I was looking for change, I decided to up and move across the country from California to North Carolina, which is where I live now here in the Raleigh area. And I was lucky enough to find a position with a small notification startup based out of here in Raleigh. And I worked as a training specialist. So I was still working with K-12, going on site to the schools and districts to teach them how to learn to use the notification platform that the company was selling. And I really enjoyed that. I love travel, and I love face-to-face with customers. And I was still related, tangentially to K-12 education. And then 4 years into that journey, the company was acquired by Blackboard. Acquisitions in K-12 are
Yeah.
pretty much the norm. And so in that, I got to try out all sorts of different things. I tried support. I tried implementation. I did training. I was a manager of the support team at one point. So I've kind of dipped my toes into all the things. But it was always kind of a post-sales. After sales are made, I help the customer learn the product or use the product. And then in 2022, Blackboard K-12 was acquired by Finalsite. And so that was when it was my cue to just get out of the revolving door of acquisitions. And I looked around, and ParentSquare was the soft landing place for me. But it was an exciting opportunity because I got to do pre-sales. I was a solutions engineer when I joined ParentSquare to show off the new CMS, content management system, smart sites that they had just launched. And so I became the subject matter expert in it and showed it off, and we got it off the ground, and I got lots of sales going. But in that role as a solutions engineer, I worked really closely with product that I never really even knew how all of the things made it into the software, who made those decisions. And turns out the product manager does. And so when there was an opportunity to become the product manager of Smart Sites, I jumped at it, because after all the years of working with clients on their websites, knowing what their pain points are, I was able to take a position that will help me address their pain points and make their lives easier. So I feel like I kind of won the job lottery.
Nice. Well, we'll get to a little bit of why smart sites and just school websites really matter. But I want to jump back to something you were saying, is like you jumped in and your aspiration was that of a teacher, and specifically a middle school social studies and civics teacher. And I want you to explore like what about that really sort of inspired you to become a teacher that's really helping students understand civics?
Well, I think that knowledge is power, and being able to understand history is so important to inform your decisions in your current life, because the old saying, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, is absolutely true. And so I wanted to share that information in a way that is accessible to, your average 12-year-old, and
Yeah.
bring it, make it exciting to them, bring it to their level. And, developing curriculum and lesson plans that do that was one of the most exciting parts of teaching to me. I was always a good student. I always behaved in my classes. And so then facing the reality of like, wow, as a teacher, you're having to deal with some students who aren't just naturally interested and want to do well in school. So I had to find ways to motivate those types of students, and but they were often the most rewarding ones if you could get them involved. Do things like a medieval fair type day where they dress up in a costume, and seeing everyone get involved in those kinds of activities was super rewarding. But, as everybody knows, teachers, they have so much on their plate and they get burned
Yeah.
out. And I was one of those people. And, but I still was really committed to making sure that, I didn't just have a job just to have a job. I don't want it to just be a paycheck. I want to contribute to our society in some meaningful, valuable way. And so helping clients, learn a platform, for instance, that sends out notifications for when school's delayed or reminders about open house, it's a very important tool, right? That helps students and parents stay informed and engaged. Perhaps not as critical as something about knowing, your civic duty to cast your ballot, or the ups and downs of themes over history and so forth. But more less philosophical, more practical.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's so interesting because as we think of the baseline of civics and helping educate young people, you starting out with that passion and now being in a situation where we have all of these young students who are learning how to become digital citizens, and now managing schools' websites. I think that's just a really interesting marriage of your career paths, and I love to bridge that into what you get to do now with smart sites, and specifically like when you think of a school's website, and like what all goes into that, and how does that background of teaching help you to translate that into school websites that work?
Yeah. Well, it's actually changed so much over the years. So when I was a teacher, I actually created my own website for my students and parents to be able to check on things like homework assignments and what have you. But nowadays, all that kind of lives in a learning management system, right?
Yeah.
Especially after COVID, a lot of districts now use either Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever platform for that type of communication about the day-to-day classroom ongoing things. So the website's role has really transitioned more into a marketing piece. And the private and charter schools have a little bit of a leg up because they've always had to promote themselves. And so they understand that need and that purpose and how to structure a website for that purpose. Whereas K-12, it's often, well, you live in this neighborhood, so you go to this school, and there's not so much need to advertise. But as I feel, as time has gone on, people move across country. I'm a perfect example, and they research the school districts, right? They
Yep.
want to move someplace where there's good schools. And so if you're moving, especially to the like metropolitan areas where there might be so many different suburbs and so many different school districts in one general area, you need to compare and contrast. And the website is the front porch of your district, and how people will judge it from afar. If they're not driving past it every day because they live in a different state, they will go to your website and judge you based on that. And so you need to structure your website for that visitor, the prospective family who might enroll their students, but also the prospective staff member. I know hiring is a big pain point in K-12, not only for teachers, but also for all the supportive roles, bus drivers, classroom aides, cafeteria workers, and so forth. So when they're looking around for what district do I want to work for, they also will judge you based on your website. So having that welcoming front porch that not only looks good, looks of course are important. You want it to look attractive, but also be easy to navigate and easy to find what you're looking for. And so those are the kind of key differences. Used to be a website would be where all the parents would go, your existing parents, to find information. But now that's all again in the LMS or in ParentSquare, where you can send out, the teachers can send out, hey, reminder that your project is due Friday, or hey, the field trip is next Tuesday. All of that's, in ParentSquare. So you don't need to put that on your website, which is kind of a relief because, back in the day when you did put that kind of stuff on your website, how many times would a parent go to look at a teacher's website and it's like, welcome to the 2020 school year, and it's like 4 years out of date.
Yeah.
um, so that way, the just-in-time information is coming fast and furious, but it's coming, in a notification system as opposed to a static web page that's constantly needing to be updated. So the website is more a platform for marketing these days.
Love that. Well, and I love the parallels. So when you're thinking about when you were a teacher, right, you were communicating, building a website, and I get the full impression that you were a great teacher, but you were also like dynamically, you were doing some things that not all teachers were doing at that time either. But also, we have a lot of these comments that the greater community doesn't know what happens in a school. And when they don't know what happens in a school, they build their own narratives around it. And so you sort of started with that posture. And when we think about that communication opportunity, if everything we have is a private communication with parents, I'm a parent, but my daughter's not yet in school. And so I don't know. Like I could walk to our elementary school in our neighborhood, but I really don't know. Other than knowing some of the teachers there, I don't know all of what happens there. And I think
Right.
that's why it's so critical.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to make people that don't have the inside scoop feel like they're getting the inside scoop without needing
Yeah.
to be an enrolled parent at the district yet, so that they can make that informed decision. And so that's why it's important to tell your story. And as we all know, visuals, videos, pictures, graphics are what catch people's eye. So having a page with 5 paragraphs of text on it might get all the information in front of them, but it's not going to be engaging. And so you want to tell that story in a different way. Still present, obviously, all the information they need, but try to do it in a way that that really screams, we know what we're all about, and we want to share that with you, because what we're all about is great. It's our kids, it's our staff. They're amazing. Amazing things happen every day, and if you don't share that, then people don't know, and they will just be left to
Yeah.
wonder and assume, oh, it must be like it was when I was in school, right? And if they put that assumption on it, then it's going to be wrong, because no school is like it was 20, 30 years ago.
Now, I want to talk a little bit, because this is the Content Generation podcast. I want to talk a little bit about how you both have coached a lot of content creators, over the years. So those individuals who are creating, editing their website, things like that, and maybe other means, like we work with people in social media all the time, which is another one of those publicly facing things. But as you think about all of the folks that you're coaching and teaching in content generation, what are you telling them today about what to put on your website, how to generate content, how do you make it interesting, how do you keep it active, how do you keep after that grind of keeping it up to date? Like, how do you coach them?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about opening your eyes to what stories you can tell. A lot of people, they think, well, I don't have any interesting stories to tell. I'm quote unquote just a teacher, or I'm just an assistant principal. And you might think, my stories, it's just my daily grind of I get up, I go to school, I teach the kids, I come home. But you have to look for the little magic moments, because if you don't try to focus on all the little glimmers in your day, it's really easy to lose sight of your why. And so, why are you in a school teaching or coaching or bus driving? Why are you doing those things? And you need to look for those little glimmers of excitement and hope and positive interactions. Even just when you greet your students at the door of the classroom every day, and just exchange the pleasantries of good morning or good afternoon or how was your weekend, and engaging the students. A lot of times people look back at their high school or middle school or elementary experience, and they might have fond memories of a couple teachers here and there, but they might not realize that teachers now have to be so different. And so they might not realize when their child goes to school, they have a completely different experience than what they had when they were in school. And so telling those stories of how school is different and yet how students are still succeeding, right? It's different, but it's still possible to succeed. It's still possible to learn, of course. But you got to tell those stories, and you got to, I mean, everyone has their phone attached to their hip. And so, capturing little pictures and anecdotes, those are the things that really round out the story. I mean, you might think, how can I capture everything I do in one post? You're not going to. That it's a series of posts that kind of builds the larger picture. And so, you have a page for transportation that says, so and so is the department chair and our bus routes run at these times at these stops. But talk about the bus driver who, was able to assist a student that was having a really hard day, and they see them every day. And so they're like, oh, I notice you're down, here, let's chat about it. What's going on at home, that kind of thing. And obviously you're not going to share the personal private details of what goes on, but you're just going to say, highlight the things that all your staff are doing to make students' lives better. Because it's happening all around every day, and you might just become blind to it because you are kind of in your groove and doing your routine and everything. So it's just about finding those stories, and people need to be willing to share those stories, and open up about them, but giving them the opportunity to do that.
Sure. Well, I love how you're putting that when I think about your background in civics, right, and as a someone who has read and studied history and wants to make change out of that, right? That's what we want to do in a school's website. That's what we want to do as communicators, is understand what's happening, right? We have information that we have to deliver, but we also want to deliver that message that impact is happening here. And it's not just what time to be there for the bus. It's also how important that role matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Parents just want to know that when they send their child to school, they're going to be taken care of, right? And in whatever capacity that might mean, they're going to be able to eat a healthy lunch. They're going to feel safe from bullying or, outside actors that might threaten the school, things of that nature. They just want their child to feel safe and taken care of. And a lot of times we just kind of take that for granted and overlook what's happening in a school to make that a reality. And so highlighting those things and, even things such as the programs that you have for perhaps disabled students or military families or, all the kind of niche groups that need that special extra attention, highlight those on your website so people know there's a place for my child at your school and they will be taken care of.
That's awesome. We have product managers here too, and when I think about the role there that you're filling, it's such an important role because you're listening to so much feedback as a product manager, and so if you haven't met a product manager, I'd sort of like there's a ton of feedback, but then there's also this impact that you're saying, how do I serve all of these people and all of these voices? And then I also want to hear, what's your vision? Right? Because then you're sort of taking all of that feedback, appealing to the masses, and then you're saying, hey, now I want to cast this vision for product, right? So that fits all of these needs. What does that look like for you in the future of smart sites and the products that you're helping envision for school PR and for communicators all across the world of education? Like what's the vision for the future of products there?
So the vision for the future of smart sites is to make it the most user-friendly platform so that your average educator, whether they're a librarian, a teacher, an attendant secretary, a principal, what have you, anyone who needs to touch the website, it's an intuitive platform that they can just open up and start using right away. And not to have a learning curve, because I know that systems change in schools all the time. You get a new student information system, you get a new behavior management system, you get a new notification system, and you're having to learn new systems all the time. So I want smart sites to be as intuitive as possible so that you can use it without needing to sit down and take 12 hours of training. And yet, what you are able to produce is of the caliber that will engage the visitors to your site. It will look good. And so, we have all sorts of tools to make that happen in smart sites. One example is Page Pro, which is a template import tool. We have, tons of different templates that you can choose from. If you're making an About Us page, an athletics page, a school board page, you can import a designer curated page onto your site and just update the placeholder text and pictures with your own. So that way you are guaranteed that it's going to look good and attract visitors, who will be impressed when they look at it, as opposed to, leaving you to your own devices, where even the greatest artists get that blank canvas syndrome where they're like, where do I start? What do I do? And so that's really the vision, is to make it as easy as possible to tell your story in a way that's engaging and looks good. And I would be remiss if I didn't also add is accessible, right? Because accessibility refers to whether the content on your site can be accessed by anyone, regardless of ability or disability, visual impairments, hearing impairments, so forth. And so we have guardrails in smart sites to ensure that you're not able to put yellow text on a white background that's not really readable, right? Or ensures that the links that you add are descriptive, and so on and so forth. So making sure that content looks good, but also meets all the legal requirements and the ethical requirements of making sure that you can reach your entire audience. So that's kind of the vision from a 30,000 foot view.
Yeah, no, I love the way you're talking about building websites. My first job out of school was actually building a content management system in PHP, and so as I was building that, people would say, "Hey, but I don't want a templated website." And one of the things as a designer, developer, is helping people understand that we need to develop like a paradigm that's universal, right? That otherwise, if every page looks entirely different on a website, now all of a sudden, it's just confusing, right? So I like your aspiration of anybody can use it. And I have a feeling that there's maybe a goal behind that maybe you could have more people involved in updating the website than maybe are involved today.
Right. Democratize the process, right? So that
There
it's
you
not
go.
just in the hands of one or two people, the web admins who, have a lot on their plate, probably doing other things in public relations, communications, technology, right? Democratize it so that other people can help, right? Why,
Right.
why put that on the shoulders of one or two people when you can involve more? It is a fine line. You don't want everybody at every school to have access, because that phrase "too many cooks in the kitchen" rings true. But because you do want to have that unified message and presence and style. But things like, you need to have a title at the top of your page, right? I mean, there's templates for a reason, because when someone goes to that page, they want to know what it's about, and a title at the top is going to help them.
Yeah.
But in smart sites, there's so many configuration options, and so
Cool.
it's a template that you can import for, say, your athletics page, but then you can drag and drop to rearrange things. If you want the coaches above the team rosters or below, you can easily change that and add background images and add different colors, and so many different configuration options within each component on the page, that you might start with a template, but then you're customizing it. Just like when you buy a house, right? I hate to break it to you, it was a template, right? All the houses in your neighborhood are built off the same 4 designs, but then you paint your house blue and your neighbor paints their house gray, and then inside, all the different options, and every single room you kind of add your special touch. So after a while, you don't even realize that it's the same template at the base. It's because it's been so customized with your colors, your brand, your style.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's so many decisions that I know you're making as a product manager. how do you help them all feel, to borrow from your civics, how do you help them feel like every vote matters
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
a sort of like someone who's giving you feedback? Because I think as school communicators, we have that chance a lot of times where we're getting feedback, right? Whether it's a poll we're sending out to our community, or we're asking parents for input or things like that. And I think your specific role, you're soliciting so much feedback. Like how do you do that in a way that everyone feels both like their voice matters in giving you that feedback, but also that it's going to make an impact down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone in their daily life has to prioritize their to-do list. And as a product manager, prioritization is literally like in my veins. I'm constantly reprioritizing too, based on feedback that I get from our customers. And a lot of times it's through the support channels or through the implementation channels that feedback trickles up to me. But I make sure that I have meetings every month with the solutions engineers. What are you hearing from prospects that they need in a website platform? I meet with the implementation managers. What are you hearing that the folks really need and want? And I have a shared document. It's a wish list that the implementation managers can put things on and support people as well. Clients want this. And then I review that list every week and I create those tickets and prioritize them in the queue. And a lot of times, people say, well, I need it right now. And I wish I could give it to you right now. But,
Yeah.
We got to get in line and you just got to trust the process. And so but I think people see that their feedback matters. I was just at a user group in Alabama earlier this week. And it was 13 different school districts, over 40 individuals there. And they told me that they feel heard, that the feedback they give is received and acted upon. A
Mhm.
lot of times, I mean, in my history of working with different companies, the feedback is always welcomed, but then it often just kind of sits in the corner and is ignored. But
Yeah.
that's not the Parent Square way. We are absolutely driven by customer feedback. And a lot of, sometimes the feedback is something that is only going to assist that one particular customer. And I do need to consider the larger customer base. But a lot of the improvements are like, oh, I see the value in that for all of our customers. Let's move forward with that. And so, it is a constant process of evaluating. Is this going to be beneficial to one customer or to a large chunk of them? And if it's the latter, then we move forward with implementing that. And the pace of change on smart sites lately is
Yeah.
just incredible.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. When I think about the role of a lot of our audience here, and a lot of them that I talk to, we have this challenge of listening to parents, to listening to community members, to figuring out like how we like you used a lot of these words that we're trying to do, right? Like we're trying to democratize content creators. Like we want to have more content creators because that's less work, right? But like also we also need to be in control of that, and we need to then disseminate out all of that information back so that people do feel heard in our community. And the challenge in schools a lot of times is we can't always fix it. It's not always a product that we can sort of say, oh, this feature will add to it. We have to communicate that, hey, we're listening about what you're saying about schedules, or we're listening to what you're saying about how we organize pickup, or whatever the thing is, right? And then communicate that back. So I think there's a lot for all of us to learn from your product management experience.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, as you think of what's next, it sounds like democratizing content creation, which is certainly a pattern we're heavily involved in here, and something we're very passionate about. What else is next, and how do you see things changing for the clients that you serve?
So on our roadmap are deeper integrations with the ParentSquare system. So that's really, I mean, we have a great CMS that you can have, you know, a website that looks great and is easy for people to manage. But the real kind of magic sauce is in all the ways that it integrates with ParentSquare. And we already integrate a lot, you know, the single sign-on where you just log in with your ParentSquare account to edit the website. You can have a staff directory that automatically updates so that you're not having to manually keep track of who's coming and going to each, you know, school and what have you, if the title changes and so forth. So there's already a bunch of integrations that are in place, but we want to go deeper so that it's even more integrated. So things like you can post an alert from ParentSquare that pops up on your website, but we want to have more options, you know, so that you can control exactly when that alert will stop showing, because right now it's just a 24-hour period. So, you know, deeper integrations to make the products more synergistic. And so that's kind of the overarching goal for the roadmap in the coming year. But I have all sorts of exciting things that are just on the CMS side as well, you know, new components to make it easy to present your content in a graphic way without necessarily needing graphic design experience. We recently integrated with Canva, which is, I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware of, because it's an amazing graphic design tool that I think has a similar mission of democratizing graphic design. They make it so easy. And so we integrated with them. So if you have your Canva projects that you want to put on your website, you don't have to download from Canva, upload to Smart Sites, and then put it on the page. You can just bring it straight through from Canva onto your page. And so, you know, adding that integration in other places in the product is also coming soon. And so it's just furthering that mission of making it easy for you to tell your story, and not in a way that is extra work, right? You're already kind of doing all the things. You just need to kind of document it and share it.
Love it. Love it. Well, Melissa, we're rooting for you and happy to have a partnership with ParentSquare and be able to connect in a lot of different levels, and love to hear more about your background. It's been really fun today, and thanks for sharing with us.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.